The night was alive with silver light, the full moon spilling its glow over the dense forest. Shadows danced across the ground, twisting between ancient trees as if whispering secrets only the wolves could understand. A lone wolf lifted its muzzle, letting out a howl that cut through the stillness, raw and mournful. Somewhere deep within the underbrush, a woman watched, her breath shallow, heart beating in guarded rhythm. She had learned early how to hide her heart, cold, detached, invisible, that had been her armor. Yet tonight, as the wind tugged at her dark hair, there was a tremor, a pull she could not name. The wolf's howl reached her ears, and she felt it resonate deep inside her, as if calling something long forgotten, and then he appeared, alpha of the nearby pack, tall, commanding, his presence a weight that seemed to bend the air around him. His eyes amber and unreadable, found hers in the shadows. She wanted to look away, to retreat behind the walls she had spent years building, but something in his gaze stopped her, curiosity, recognition. Or was it destiny, clawing at the edges of her carefully constructed life? The forest held its breath, the moonlight glinting off his sharp features. "I've been waiting," he said, his voice low and velvety, carrying both authority and something more dangerous, intimate. Her pulse skipped. She should have fled, but she didn't. She couldn't, not when the first whisper of fate had found her. The wind shifted, the shadows shifted, and the first thread of their entwined destinies had begun to weave itself. The next morning, the sun struggled through thick clouds, casting the pack house in muted light. She moved through the corridors with practiced grace, every step precise, every gesture careful, cold. Detached, that was her persona, and it served her well. It kept curiosity at bay. It kept Alpha at a distance, mostly. He appeared again, as if drawn by some invisible thread. The Alpha stood at the edge of the training yard, watching the pack members spar, his gaze sharp and calculating. When it met hers, she felt a ripple through her carefully controlled composure. His presence was magnetic, pulling at parts of her she had long buried. "You train harder than you fight," he said, stepping closer. His voice was casual, yet there was a weight behind it that made her pulse quicken. "I prefer precision to brute force," she replied, keeping her tone icy. Her hands clenched at her sides, hiding the tiny quiver that betrayed her nerves. He tilted his head, observing her as one might study a rare animal in the wild. "You hide more than just skill," he murmured, her chest tightened. She'd been careful not to let anyone see the cracks. But his gaze penetrated deeper than she expected. "I don't hide anything," she said a little too sharply. A small, almost imperceptible smirk curved his lips. "Everyone hides something," he said softly. The tension between them was electric, unspoken, lingering like a storm about to break. She wanted to retreat, to vanish into her walls, but a tiny spark, one she did not dare name, fluttered in her chest. Later, when she sat alone in the library, her fingers tracing the edges of a worn book, she replayed his words, his gaze, that smirk, the way he seemed to see through her. She had thought herself untouchable, untethered. But perhaps, just perhaps, she had miscalculated, and somewhere, she knew, the Alpha had already noticed. A shiver ran down her spine, not from the chill of the room, but from the dangerous, thrilling awareness that her carefully guarded walls were beginning to crack. These first two sections established tone, world, building, forbidden tension, and the heroine's guarded personality, exactly as needed for the viral rejected mate/hidden identity, werewolf romance vibe. The next evening, the pack gathered in the clearing for the weekly ritual, a mixture of tradition, hierarchy, and subtle posturing. Torches flickered against the darkening sky, casting long, twisting shadows that seemed to reach for the ground like fingers of the past. She moved carefully among the pack, her posture stiff, her expression untouched, but every step felt heavier than the last. He was already their alpha of the pack, standing at the center, commanding attention without even trying. His gaze swept the crowd with the authority of a predator, sharp and unyielding, and then it landed on her. Her stomach tightened. Every instinct screamed at her to look away, but she couldn't, not when his amber eyes were fixed on her, unreadable yet piercing. A flicker of curiosity, or was it something more, passed through them. "Sit." His voice was calm, but it carried weight, authority, and a hidden edge that made everyone fall silent. She hesitated at the periphery of the circle, then complied, sinking onto the rough ground while keeping her hands folded in her lap. A ripple of murmurs spread through the pack. She had always been a mystery, too controlled, too aloof. But now, with the Alpha's gaze burning on her, even she felt exposed, fragile in a way she had never allowed herself. "You train alone," he said, his voice low, cutting through the whispers. "Why?" Her fingers tightened into fists. "I prefer to work at my own pace." The words were careful, but there was a slight edge, a defensive bite. He took a step closer, and the tension thickened. "You think isolation makes you strong," he said softly, almost conversationally. "But strength isn't just muscle or skill. It's knowing your place, knowing who stands beside you, and knowing who could stand against you." Her jaw tightened. She wanted to argue to keep her distance, to maintain control. But there was something in his tone, a dangerous pull, that made her hesitate. "Perhaps," she whispered, barely audible, "I don't want anyone beside me." A flicker of something surprise, amusement, crossed his face. "Not even me." Her gaze dropped to the ground, heart pounding. She told herself it was just a fleeting moment of weakness. She had control. She always had control. Yet as the ritual continued, she could feel his eyes following her, studying her, reading her in ways no one else dared. Rumors would spread, whispers would start, and her carefully built walls would begin to tremble, not from fear, but from the undeniable pull she felt whenever he was near. As the torches flickered against the night, she realized something she hadn't allowed herself to admit. The Alpha's presence was no longer just a threat. It was a challenge, one that she didn't know if she could, or wanted, to resist. And perhaps, just perhaps, that terrified her more than any rival or enemy could. The next pack gathering was supposed to be routine, another chance for members to train, socialize, and reaffirm their roles. But for her, it became a stage for humiliation she hadn't anticipated. She moved through the crowd, keeping her head high, shoulders rigid. Every eye on her felt like a weight pressing down, every whisper carrying judgment. She could hear snatches of conversation, half-hearted jokes, sly comments about her aloofness, speculation about her mysterious origins. "Did you see her last night?" A young wolf muttered behind her back. "She's hiding something. I just know it." Her chest tightened. She forced a smile, ice cold, but inside her heart was racing. She had always been careful, always hidden, and now it felt like the entire pack could see right through the walls she'd spent years building. And then he arrived, the Alpha. His gaze immediately found her in the crowd, sharp and unyielding. But this time, instead of warmth or curiosity, there was something else, an edge, a challenge, a warning. "Why do you isolate yourself?" he asked, loud enough for the nearby pack members to hear. The question hung in the air like a blade. She flushed, caught off. "Guard, I prefer solitude," she said, her voice tighter than intended. A ripple of laughter spread through the pack. She felt the sting of humiliation, sharp and hot, burning her cheeks. Her carefully maintained composure threatened to shatter. The Alpha's eyes narrowed, and without a word, he strode forward. But instead of a harsh reprimand, he moved with calculated precision, placing himself beside her, as though shielding her from the jeering pack. "You will not be mocked in my presence," he said, his voice low but lethal, each word slicing through the tension. Yet the very act of protecting her made her feel both grateful and exposed. The subtle shift of proximity, the brush of his arm against hers, intimate, unintentional, undeniable, sent a thrill racing through her body, even as her pride screamed at her to push him away. The pack went silent, sensing the power dynamic, the unspoken tension, the electricity crackling between them. Whispers died mid, word, eyes darting nervously between the two of them. She wanted to flee, to retreat into her cold, safe shell. But she couldn't, not when he was so close, so watchful, so impossible to ignore. Later, when the gathering ended, she retreated to the forest's edge, heart pounding and cheeks still flushed. The moon hung low, casting silver light over the trees. Her hands shook slightly, and she realized with an almost painful clarity the Alpha had seen more than just her vulnerability. He had seen her, and that terrified her, because now hiding wouldn't be enough. The night was thick with mist, curling between the trees like ghostly fingers. The moon hung low and full, bathing the forest in silver light that made every shadow dance. She moved carefully through the underbrush, keeping her senses sharp. Tonight, the pack had allowed her some freedom, her choice to patrol the outskirts, but the air was heavy with unspoken tension, and he was there as always. The Alpha had followed silently, his presence a predator's shadow at the edge of her awareness. She didn't turn to look at him, not yet. There was too much she needed to contain, too many secrets she had guarded for so long. But the moment the moonlight touched her skin, something stirred. A low hum of energy, invisible but tangible, pulsed through her veins. She froze, her pulse quickened, heart hammering, not from fear, but from recognition. She had felt this power before, fleetingly, but never so strong. "Do you feel it too?" he asked, his voice soft, almost a whisper. It was the kind of tone that demanded honesty, not bravado. She shook her head, forcing control over the tremor that threatened to betray her. "It's nothing," she said, though the word felt hollow. The Alpha stepped closer, amber eyes scanning her with a mixture of curiosity and caution. "You're hiding more than you admit," he said, the weight of each word pressing down on her. "I can feel it. It's extraordinary." Her chest constricted. The walls she had spent years building shivered, tiny cracks forming along the icy surface. She wanted to run, to retreat into the cold shell she knew kept everyone at bay, but something primal, kept her rooted in place. A sudden shimmer of light radiated from her hands, and instinctively she pulled them close to her chest. The energy surged, uncontrolled yet mesmerizing. Leaves trembled, the mist swirled around her feet, and a low, resonant vibration filled the clearing. He reached out, but stopped short, letting a cautious distance remain. "You're not like anyone I've ever known," he murmured, "and I need to know. Can I trust you?" Her heart wrenched. Trust, a word she rarely offered, and yet here he was, standing in the moonlight, offering it without a demand. She wanted to deny him, to hide the truth as she always had, but her instincts, her growing connection to him, made her hesitate. Before she could answer, the wind carried voices from the pack's edge, rumors, questions, whispers. The secret was already stirring curiosity, threatening exposure. She met his gaze, amber into brown, and felt a silent understanding pass between them. Whatever this power was, whatever the truth of her past, she couldn't hide forever. And with the moon as witness, a forbidden bond began to take root, one that neither time nor fear could erase. The forest was alive with whispers, the wind threading through the branches like a soft, urgent voice. Moonlight draped everything in silver, but even in its glow, she felt the weight of his gaze on her, invisible yet impossible to ignore. She could sense him before she saw him, the predatory grace of his movements, the unspoken intensity that clung to him like a shadow. "Why do you keep running from me?" he asked, stepping from the shadows as if he had always been there. His amber eyes glimmered in the moonlight, a mixture of command and something infinitely more dangerous, desire. She stiffened, guarding her heart, holding her walls high. "I'm not running," she said, her voice quieter than she intended. "I'm just cautious." He closed the distance between them in a few fluid steps, and the air seemed to thrum around them. "Caution," he repeated, almost teasing, or fear, her breath caught. She wanted to deny it, to push him away, but the truth hovered like a fragile flame. The heat of his proximity, the low vibration of his presence, made her pulse spike. She wanted to reach for him, to close the impossible distance between them, yet a whisper of restraint held her back. His hand brushed hers, an almost accidental touch as he gestured toward the clearing, but the contact was electric, like fire racing along her skin. She flinched inwardly, though a part of her longed to feel it again. "You feel it too, don't you?" he murmured, voice low and raw, leaving no room for pretense. "This pull between us, she swallowed hard, struggling to maintain control. Her voice faltered, caught in the pull of her own emotions. She had trained herself to be untouchable, yet he had a way of making every rule she'd followed crumble. He stepped closer, close enough that the faint scent of him, earthy, wild, and undeniably him, filled her senses. "We can't fight it forever," he said, each word a temptation, "not if you're brave enough to admit it." Her chest heaved, the forest seemed to hold its breath as the tension between them tightened. One more step, one more gesture, could tip the balance into something irreversible. But before anything could happen, a distant howl echoed from the pack, sharp and commanding, breaking the fragile bubble of intimacy. She instinctively drew back, the heat of his hand lingering against her fingers. The connection was undeniable, yet the rules, pack hierarchy, secrecy, her own fear, demanded distance. He lingered a moment longer, amber eyes searching hers, a silent challenge and promise wrapped together. "Soon," he whispered, "you won't be able to resist me for long." And then he vanished into the shadows, leaving her trembling with a heady mix of fear, desire, and anticipation. The forest remained silent, but her heart roared. The forbidden pull had begun. The dawn broke cold and gray, seeping through the cracks of the pack house like unwelcome truth. She moved quietly through the halls, avoiding most of the pack, her thoughts a tangled storm of unease. Last night's stolen moment with the Alpha lingered in her mind, his hand brushing hers, the promise in his amber gaze. But it was quickly replaced by a creeping sense of dread, because not all eyes in the pack were loyal. Whispers followed her even before she reached the training yard. "Did you hear what she did last night?" a voice hissed. "I think she's hiding something dangerous." Another snickered, a cruel, sharp edge to their amusement. Her stomach churned. She had always kept her secret hidden, the truth of her powers and her mysterious past buried beneath layers of control. And now someone had found a thread, someone daring enough to pull at it. The Alpha appeared at the edge of the yard, silent and commanding, amber eyes scanning the gathering. When they met hers, there was a flicker of concern, a subtle shift that spoke louder than words. She realized with a cold pang that even he might not be able to shield her from what was coming. "You need to trust me," he said later, stepping close as the pack members drifted away into their own duties. His voice was soft but insistent, a tether she felt she couldn't refuse. She began but stopped. Could she trust anyone anymore? The pack who gossiped and schemed, allies who might turn on her at the slightest provocation. Even the Alpha, for all his dominance, had limits to his influence. A rival pack member, a tall wolf with a dangerous grin, approached from the shadows, eyes glinting with malice. "Interesting powers you've got," he said, voice dripping with false admiration. "You're going to be useful or dangerous." She stiffened. Their words were a threat, a promise wrapped in venom. Her hands itched to summon the energy that simmered beneath her skin, but she restrained herself, knowing a display now could expose everything. The Alpha's presence beside her was a tether of calm, but even his proximity couldn't erase the sharp sting of betrayal. "Stay close," he murmured, voice low, and she nodded, heart hammering. The shadows lengthened as the day wore on, carrying whispers of suspicion and growing tension. Trust had fractured, even among allies, and she realized the dangerous truth. Enemies didn't always wear fangs. Some walked beside you, smiling, hiding daggers behind their backs. She glanced at the Alpha, a flicker of determination igniting in her chest. If the pack or the rival wanted to test her, they would find she wasn't so easily cornered. But the betrayal stung deeper than she expected, and as the sun dipped below the horizon, she sensed it. The game was only beginning and the shadows were closing in. The pack house hummed with unease, the air thick with whispered conversations and sidelong glances. The tension was palpable, wrapping around the halls like a tightening noose. She moved carefully among the pack members, every step measured, every gesture neutral. Trust had become a fragile thing, and even the smallest misstep could ignite suspicion. He was there, always there, shadowing her movements, his presence a constant, unspoken reassurance. Yet even he seemed distracted, alert to threats she couldn't fully see. Amber eyes scanned the room with precision, noting every tremor of unease, every nervous glance. "You're careful," he said quietly, stepping beside her in the dim light. But careful only goes so far. Secrets have a way of surfacing, no matter how well you guard them. Her chest tightened. I know, she admitted, voice barely a whisper, but I can't let anyone see what I really am. He studied her, a flicker of concern passing through his gaze. The pack. Some will try to test you, to challenge your place. You need to be ready. And he wasn't wrong. Across the room, rival pack members exchanged sharp, calculating looks. The air vibrated with unspoken tension. Politics, envy, hidden agendas. Every movement she made was observed, every word weighed and dissected. A sudden commotion erupted near the training yard. Two pack members argued fiercely, their voices rising, accusing each other of disloyalty. The alpha's hand rested briefly on her shoulder, a silent reminder that she wasn't alone, but it wasn't enough to quell the storm brewing around them. She felt a pull, a magnetic need to step forward, to assert herself, but caution won over pride. The forest outside whispered in the night wind, reminding her that the stakes weren't just personal, they were pack-wide. Every decision mattered, every reaction had consequences. Later, in the quiet of the moonlit clearing, the alpha approached again. You're not just part of this pack, he said softly, eyes glinting in the silver light. You're essential, but with that comes danger. They'll test you, push you, and they'll watch us, every interaction, every glance. Her heart raced. She wanted to recoil, to retreat, but a stubborn spark of defiance flared within her. She wasn't going to let threats or politics control her life. Not entirely. He reached out, brushing a stray lock of hair from her face. The contact was brief, intimate, and she felt it deep in her chest, a dangerous warmth spreading through her. We have to be careful, he murmured, but careful doesn't mean we hide what's already between us. Her breath caught. That pull, the forbidden connection, the undeniable tension, was growing stronger with every passing moment. The night pressed around them, heavy with secrets, envy, and desire. And as the wind rustled the trees, she realized that navigating the pack's treacherous politics would be nothing compared to resisting the alpha's magnetic presence. The forest seemed to hold its breath, and so did she. The forest was silent except for the crunch of leaves beneath her boots. Moonlight filtered through the canopy, casting a silvery glow that made every shadow deeper, every movement sharper. Her chest still throbbed from the tension of the pack's unrest, but tonight another weight pressed down on her, one she hadn't anticipated. She had stumbled upon an old scroll in the pack's archive, hidden beneath layers of dust and secrecy. Its words were cryptic, a prophecy written in symbols she barely understood. Yet one thing was chillingly clear. Her fate was entwined with the alpha's pack in ways that went beyond attraction or politics. Her hands trembled as she traced the markings. It can't be true. She whispered to herself, but deep inside she felt the undeniable pull of destiny, binding her to a path she hadn't chosen. A rustle behind her made her spin, energy tingling at her fingertips. He stepped from the shadows, amber eyes sharp, sensing the disturbance before she could even speak. You found it, he said quietly, voice taut with restrained emotion. I feared this would happen. She swallowed hard. It says my fate is tied to the pack, that I am meant to be. She stopped, unable to finish the words aloud. The truth was too dangerous, too vulnerable. He moved closer, placing a hand gently on her shoulder, grounding her trembling. I know, he said, and I know why others will try to use it against you, to manipulate, to test you, to claim you as theirs. Fear flared in her chest, mingled with something deeper, a growing anger she hadn't allowed herself to feel. She was tired of hiding, tired of being treated like a fragile secret. Then I'll fight it, she said, voice steadier now, determination threading through her words. I won't let them decide who I am. A distant howl echoed through the forest, sharp and demanding, a reminder that the pack's eyes were never far away. Betrayal wasn't just a threat, it was already in motion. Allies she trusted, faces she believed loyal, might not be what they seemed. And as the weight of the prophecy settled over her, she realized the danger wasn't just external. It was personal, intimate, and unavoidable. He brushed a loose strand of hair from her face, his amber gaze locking with hers. "You're stronger than they know," he murmured, "but strength alone won't be enough. You'll need me, and you'll need to trust me completely." Her pulse quickened, the forest around them fading into shadow. She wanted to resist, to maintain control, but the undeniable pull of the alpha, the prophecy, and the growing bond between them left her raw, vulnerable, and trembling. The night pressed in, heavy with secrets, destiny, and danger. And as the wind whispered through the trees, she understood the terrifying truth. Nothing would ever be the same again. The sky burned in shades of crimson and violet as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the forest in an eerie twilight. Shadows stretched long and threatening, twisting through the trees like restless spirits. She moved cautiously, senses alert, every nerve alive with anticipation. Tonight there would be no hiding, no pretense, no walls. The rival pack had made their move. Rumors of betrayal had escalated into action, a coordinated strike intended to expose her secret and destabilize the Alpha's authority. Her pulse quickened at the thought, but a stubborn resolve kept her moving forward. She wasn't a victim, not tonight. He was already waiting at the edge of the clearing, muscles coiled, amber eyes blazing like molten gold. His presence was a shield, a promise, a challenge all at once. She could feel the heat radiating off him, feel the tension that crackled between them like electricity in the storm. "They're here," he murmured, voice low but commanding. "Stay close, trust me. Nothing will touch you while I'm—" A howl cut him off. From the shadows, rival wolves emerged, sleek and dangerous, eyes gleaming with malice. The first moved forward, snarling, and the forest erupted into chaos. Leaves flew, claws scraped the earth, and the scent of fear and power hung thick in the air. She summoned the energy within her, letting it flare just enough to warn, not to reveal fully. Sparks of silver light danced along her fingertips, illuminating her figure, and for the first time, she didn't hide. She was a force to be reckoned with. The Alpha lunged, fangs bared, and she moved in tandem, instinct and bond guiding her. Together, they were a tempest, unstoppable and fierce, a dance of power, instinct, and desire. She felt his presence in every movement, every heartbeat, a tether anchoring her, a promise she didn't yet dare to name. One rival lunged at her, and she deflected with a wave of controlled energy, feeling the thrill of power surge through her. Behind her, the Alpha protected, countered, dominated. Their synchrony was instinctive, their connection undeniable. Finally, as the last rival fell back into the shadows, panting and defeated, silence reclaimed the forest. The tension lingered, heavy and electric, but victory belonged to them. She stood there, chest heaving, sweat and energy mingling, and for the first time she allowed herself to exhale. He approached slowly, gaze intense, searching hers. "You're incredible," he said, voice husky, almost reverent. "Stronger than I imagined, stronger than anyone deserves to test." Her legs trembled, not just from the battle, but from the proximity, the intensity of his presence. I couldn't have done it without you," she whispered, eyes downcast. He tilted her chin up gently, forcing her to meet his gaze. "No," he said firmly, "you did this. I just stood beside you, and now—" His voice dropped, intimate and low. "We're bound in ways neither of us can deny." Her pulse raced, her walls shattered by the battle, the adrenaline, and the undeniable pull between them. Twilight wrapped around them, the forest silent witnesses to the tension, the power, and the unspoken promise. Nothing would ever be the same again. The forest lay bathed in silver light, the aftermath of battle still lingering like smoke in the air. She walked slowly, each step deliberate, as if trying to reclaim herself from the chaos of the night. Her chest still ached, not from exhaustion, but from the raw intensity of what had just passed. She had faced enemies, revealed power she had long hidden, and survived, yet the greatest challenge still lay before her, herself. He was waiting by the clearing, leaning casually against a tree, but his gaze was anything but casual. Amber eyes held hers, sharp, intense, and probing. No walls, no masks. He could see right through her. And tonight, She didn't want to hide. I thought I knew who I was, she said quietly, voice barely above the rustle of leaves. But I've been lying, to everyone, even myself. He stepped closer, the heat of his presence pressing against her, igniting something deep within. Then stop pretending, he said, voice low, compelling. I see you, all of you, and I want you. Everything you've hidden, everything you've denied. Her heart skipped, thundering painfully in her chest. She wanted to run, to retreat into her old shell, but she couldn't. Not when he was here, standing so close, giving her permission to fall apart, to rebuild. I'm scared, she admitted, the words raw and trembling. Scared of losing control, scared of letting anyone see who I really am. He reached out, fingers brushing a stray lock of hair from her face, thumb tracing the line of her cheek. Then trust me, he whispered. Trust me to hold the pieces you're afraid to show. Her breath caught, the tension between them, the unspoken desire, the intimacy of their connection. It all crashed over her like a tidal wave. She closed the distance, pressing into him, and for the first time let herself be vulnerable. I can't promise I won't break. She murmured, then break with me. He said, lips brushing hers in a tentative, searing kiss that ignited every nerve. Because I'll catch you, always. The world around them seemed to vanish. The forest, the pack, the lingering threat. All irrelevant compared to the intensity of this moment. She felt her walls shatter piece by piece, replaced with trust, longing, and something that felt dangerously like love. He pulled back slightly, eyes locking with hers, searching, questioning, and finally finding her. No more masks, he said softly. Not for me, not for anyone, you're mine, all of you. A tremor ran through her chest. Finally, she exhaled, releasing years of control, and whispered, then I'm yours. The moonlight bathed them in silver as they stood together, breaths mingling, hearts aligned. The masks were gone, the walls were shattered. And for the first time, she felt truly seen, truly safe, and undeniably alive. The full moon hung high over the forest, a silver sentinel illuminating the clearing where they stood. The night was still, the air heavy with the scent of earth, leaves, and something primal. Desire, power, and unspoken promises. She could feel the energy pulsing through her veins, the remnants of the battles, the betrayals, and the revelations, all culminating in this singular moment. He approached slowly, every step deliberate, exuding dominance and tenderness in equal measure. Amber eyes locked with hers, searching, claiming, demanding. No more hesitation. He murmured, his voice low, rich, and insistent. No more walls. Tonight you're mine, fully, completely. Her heart thundered, chest tight with anticipation. She had feared surrender, feared vulnerability, but now with him here, she realized that fear had been replaced with longing. I'm ready, she whispered, voice trembling with emotion and desire. He reached for her, his hands gentle yet commanding, cupping her face with a reverence that belied the heat burning between them. I've waited for this moment longer than you can imagine, he said, leaning closer, his forehead resting against hers. You are my mate, my heart, my everything. She shivered under his touch, feeling the pull of their bond in every fiber of her being. Slowly, deliberately, he lowered his lips to hers, and the kiss was a mixture of fire and safety, passion and trust. It ignited something deep within her, a surrender she had never allowed, a connection that had been written in destiny long before they met. Hands tangled in hair, bodies pressed close, they moved together beneath the moonlight, a symphony of heartbeats and whispered promises. Every fear, every secret, every battle faded into the night. There was only this moment, this bond, this undeniable truth. He pulled back just slightly, eyes smoldering, voice a husky whisper. We are stronger together. The pack, the prophecy, the world. None of it matters without us united. Tears threatened her eyes, not from sadness, but from relief and awe. She had been cold, distant, guarded, but now, fully embraced, she felt whole. I trust you, she breathed, completely. He captured her in his arms, holding her close as the moon bathed them in silver light. The forest around them seemed to exhale, the shadows softening, the wind carrying a gentle approval. Their bond sealed, their love undeniable, and the pack sensing the shift. The alpha had claimed his mate, and nothing could tear them apart. For the first time, she allowed herself to relax completely, resting against him, heart aligned with his. The walls were gone, the masks shattered, and destiny fulfilled. The night was theirs, the moon witness to the union of two souls meant to be together. And as the forest whispered its approval, she finally understood the truth she had hidden for so long. Love could melt even the coldest of hearts, and she had been found, completely, irrevocably, by the one who was always hers.